Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's free webinar featuring Tim. I won't take up a lot of time because I know Tim is chomping at the bit to start reviewing websites. Just to recap, there's myself, I'm Rod Blant. I have a long history in e-commerce, about 16 years with a website previously, and nowadays I look after Facebook advertising. In the background, we've also got Nathan Huppertz from Direct Shop, and of course, Tim Ash. He's going to be coming up very shortly, and there's, just to let you know, there will be some Q&A afterwards. So if you have any questions that come up as Tim is doing his reviews, then please stick around. We'd be happy to answer your questions afterwards. But now I'll hand it over to Tim. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Rod. Great to be here. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to present you and Nathan, the sponsors of the webinar. So please let the folks know about yourselves.
All right, so I'll just, yeah, I probably jumped ahead of time, didn't I, with my introduction. So some of you might know me from Retail Global, where I've spoken a few times. My previous business was Ram City, which I sold late last year, and now I've jumped the chasm to do consulting with specifically with Facebook advertising. So I help businesses scale and grow with Facebook advertising, and that's it for me.
That was easy. Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan. For those of you who don't know me, I own a retail business called Direct Shop. Our website is costumes.com.au. We've been in e-commerce for, goodness, over 20 years now with lots of different brands and websites, and I even shared a few events with Tim along the way and Rod as well, so been around. But our sponsorship for this one is with Ready to Ship, which is our shipping automation software for e-commerce platforms. So that's what I spend most of my time working on these days.
Great.
All right. Looks like it's over to you now, Tim. Or is this the part where I introduce you?
Sounds good. Why don't we do it that way?
Oh my God. All right. I'm not a rookie at all. All right. So just introducing Tim. So I think the first time I read anything about Tim was landing page optimization. Probably the first book I read on web page optimization in general. And if I still had it, it would be very dog-eared, but somewhere along the way, it's disappeared in a house move. But it was really one of the most well-read books that I had to begin with. And I think started me on a journey of examining and testing what I was doing in my e-commerce store, which is really, I'm still doing that today. So Tim has advised, well, there you go, $1.2 billion in value created. That must be over, I guess, that sort of 15-year period, still a pretty impressive number. Worked with lots of different companies. Many of you would have seen Tim speak at conferences on the Gold Coast and in Sydney and Melbourne. He's written, just recently finished another book, which I think Tim will introduce you to that later on after the webinar. And I think what's enormously valuable about today is that you would normally, you'd have to go to a conference to be able to listen in on this kind of learning. And Tim is going to, in rapid fire, basically break down as many as 8 to 10 websites and examine what it is about the website that may be hindering conversions, hindering your customers actually making it to the checkout and purchasing. And it's really valuable information. Even if it's not your website that's being reviewed, I encourage you to take notes because you'll definitely learn a lot. There's not one of these sessions that I've ever seen Tim do. I've probably seen 4 or 5 now where I haven't been able to take away a great deal of information and apply that into my own business. So I'm really about this being enormously valuable to everyone who's attending. So without further ado, over to you, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go through a bunch of websites very quickly, and I know you Aussies are a tough lot, so if I make anybody cry, I apologize in advance. This isn't going to be about giving you pats on the back or telling you how great you're doing. I'm going to focus on the negative and tell you the emperor has no clothes. And as Rod mentioned, please pay attention. Even if I don't pick your site, chances are you have the same website deadly sins as most of your compatriots. So a lot of these things I'm trying to specifically make them applicable to a wide audience. So I'm guessing these comments are going to apply to your website as well. All right. So here we go. Take notes. We're going to do this for about an hour, and then we'll do a Q&A for another half hour among the 3 of us, and be glad to answer any specific questions you have at that time. So please stick around for the whole thing. So let's start with Tasnique. Now I'm gonna do these. I didn't really spend a lot of time looking at them, and that's because your audience won't either. They'll just show up and they're just gonna be hit with this first impression. So I'm gonna just do quick reacts. All right, so one thing I wanna start with here, again, there are gonna be recurring themes for this next hour here, but one of them is motion. You see that little bar at the bottom that's got the boxes floating by? How many boxes do you think this company sells? It looks like 5 because that's all I see in the slider at any given point. So I don't really understand what their inventory is, what makes them different. There's just this kind of stuff flying by. But I want to say something even in addition to the discoverability of the different things on this site, which is the motion itself. It's deadly. Motion is really, really, really the nuclear option, if you will, of last resort. Just don't go there. And I don't care if it's a slider or something dissolves or fades. The point is, from an evolutionary perspective, our visual system is designed to detect movement anywhere within a 220-degree visual field. And that means if the bear, or in your case, the really pissed off kangaroo or the rabid Tasmanian devil is chasing you, you have to do something about it immediately. So we can't ignore motion. And as soon as you put something moving on the page, all the static stuff fades into the background. You no longer pay attention to images. You're certainly not reading tiny text on the website. So you basically keep resetting my attention every time that little slider on the bottom slides. And then I've seen a lot of these tops of websites, which also take up a huge amount of space. I want to comment on that too, because you need that amount of space just to set the tone that this is some kind of, I get it, it's bespoke and it's custom crafted and there's old world craftsmanship in there, but all that just to put a little thing that says discover Bruce's boxes. That's very expensive screen real estate up there. That's like CBD in Sydney, okay? You can't just use that gratuitously to put one button with a giant image behind it. So I see that also on a lot of sites. Strongly recommend you replace that with an actual headline that tells me what your website is or does, and then jump right into the content instead of making me scroll down. By the way, this is on a very large screen. I'm showing this on a 27-inch 4K monitor. So most of you will probably have an experience that's more akin to something like this. And then when you realize how big that giant images at the top, you begin to understand the criminal use of screen real estate that it constitutes. All right, let's move on to the next one. I'm gonna, like I said, go very fast here. This is edible blooms. I'm gonna go back to the motion, but before we can even get to the motion, check out what's happened here in the meantime. When I came to this website, a pop-up box came up and it says, "We know your details are valuable." Okay, this is before I can even see the website. And in the lower right here, a chat pop-up box appeared as well. So you have 2 overlays, and behind it, the website's going crazy and has a big motion slider. So this is rarely a good idea. I know a lot of you have entry pop-ups. I really don't recommend them. If they're motion activated, as in I'm leaving your browser window and I'm about to leave the site, okay, an exit pop-up might be okay, but just something that pops up of its own accord is generally not okay. And the same goes with chat. You want to activate chat in specific situations, mostly to help me in checkout on an e-commerce site or something functional like that, not just a random, "Hello, how can I help you?" customer service. I mean, it doesn't even have a human being attached to it, so I'm guessing it's a chat bot probably. I don't expect those to be very useful. But just for the sake of going through this, I'm going to click off that box and close the chat box and pretend that I care enough to have done that. A lot of people won't. So let's look at this. You have the giant slider again, which I'll try not to spend a lot of time on, and the gift finder. Now the gift finder is a very mechanical looking thing here, and it's hard to, it almost gets lost in terms of the visual presentation because it's above the moving slider and below the header. And I'm going to ignore the header and pay attention to the moving slider. And wedged in between them on the screen is this fast gift finder. And it's very mechanical. Occasion, then location, and then budget. And so I'm expected to know all three of those things and find exactly where I want it shipped and all of that stuff. And drop downs are a problem because they make me do something first. In other words, I can't discover occasions without opening that Dropbox, and that's a problem. So with a store like this, where you have something that's gift or occasion based, I think it's really important to have occasions. And so you should externalize that by actually unrolling them and giving them dedicated screen real estate. And I can tell you exactly where to get that extra screen real estate. Get rid of the freaking slider. Gives you plenty of new real estate to work with. So a store like this should have by occasion and by product category. And both of those are important. Where I'm shipping to, I mean, maybe you have some restrictions on certain things being available in certain places, and I understand gifts might be last minute, but I mean, same day is great, by the way, but it's not the thing that I start with. First, let me find something I want, then let me figure out how much it costs and when I need it delivered. But if I don't even find something I want, the product selection has to come first, in other words. So I recommend on this site having roughly equal screen real estate given to occasions and product categories. Okay, and the problem is that this site and many others, as we're going to see, start out with products, individual products. If you have more than a half a dozen products or so in a very limited selection, you should not have any products on your homepage. Let me say that again, because some of you are not going to believe me, or some of you are thinking I'm full of shit, and some of you don't believe me and think I'm full of shit. The point is that if you have a large product selection, whatever you put on your homepage is going to be nothing more than a guess, because it probably doesn't represent a very high percentage of your overall sales. Let me contrast that with a company like Apple. If they launch the new Apple iPhone 55 or 98 or whatever the model number is these days, that's $1 billion launch worldwide. And that deserves to have the undivided attention on the homepage of apple.com. You're not doing that. You have, again, usually if you have even a few dozen or a few hundred different items in your catalog, no, even your best-selling item is not going to represent more probably than 5% of your total sales. So again, what you're doing is you're guessing and saying, hey, you might be interested in this. And these featured products are also in a slider. As far as I know, you only have 4 featured products, and only if I use these tiny little gray arrows and click, it reveals another 4. And then I guess 1 more, and then we're back to the beginning. So the only way to discover that there are 9 items in that slider was for me to click on it, which most people won't. Nobody uses those little sideways arrows. I promise you. Do some usability studies, record some sessions. You're going to find nobody uses that stuff. And again, because it's not that useful. So you're both hiding the amount of inventory you have and making me guess and taking up a lot of screen real estate with it. And in between, you have these commercial messages, same day delivery, that's important, but not in the middle of the page, or free standard delivery when you spend $120. Those are all kind of secondary things. Like I said, the first goal on an e-commerce site is to guide people towards products they actually want to buy. And then you can tell them, alert them, available for same day delivery, this item available for same day delivery in Sydney and Adelaide. Okay, got it. That's on the product detail page. It's not here because you're not making that same claim presumably for every single product. Maybe you are, but it's not relevant to know it here necessarily. All right. Now, by the way, Rod and Nathan, if you guys want to jump in and chime in, please feel free, even though I go pretty fast.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. All right, the next one we have is buy watches online. And again, I kind of pulled up these pages to see what would happen. And so again, we have a pop-up. I'm not sure what triggers it, but 20% off any watch. And basically what you're doing is a greedy email grab to try to get my email, and then presumably email me once a day forever, even if I try to unsubscribe, with more watch offers. So Again, this is a good thing on an exit pop-up. I would not be interrupting the user experience on the way in with this kind of email grab. And also, I don't know how much your watches cost. Maybe they're all overpriced by $40 and you're giving me that $20 off. Doesn't mean much to me. So I'm going to dismiss it. Not going to get the code. You're not getting my email address. Let's look at the site itself. Again, we're seeing a lot of the same issues that I talked about. Thankfully, there's no motion on this page that I'm seeing, but we immediately jump into individual product selection. And this site is really not organized in the way that I'd like to see it. What is important? Well, let's look at your top navigation, because presumably that main nav bar is how you've organized the stuff on your site. And it's not comparing apples to oranges, as we say. This is more like comparing apples to bowling balls. We have the Casio G-Shock, which I assume is a product line, another baby G. Then we have the Edifice, which only has one thing in it. Then we have Teen. So I'm supposed to figure out from that everything else, I guess, is for grown-ups, and this is the only teen stuff here. And then we go back from teen back to Citizen Eco Drive, whatever that is, and then latest releases. Now, am I such a watch aficionado that you expect me to show up here like a fashion website and say, what's your fall collection or something? No, it's a freaking watch. I'm going to buy one. I'll probably own it for a long time, especially if I'm spending this kind of cash on it. So I don't really care about your latest releases, or at least not as a category. Now, if you want to get me down to the Casio G-Shock, because I know that brand and I go to that product page, there maybe you can talk about the latest releases, because that's where I care about it, but not as a top level category. That's my point. Now, the other thing is I've seen quite a few sites on the Australian side where you have this left column being a further kind of filtering column, and it makes the site look kind of old-fashioned, and it crams the rest of the space down to the right. I know this is a template. You probably got it out of your e-commerce software, and they recommend doing it this way. But to me, those left columns are a really, really bad idea, because they're well, for two reasons. One is, like I said, they take up precious real estate again, and they're unlikely to be used. That's a pretty technical thing there, where you're essentially saying advanced filtering. And advanced filtering, again, I challenge you to do some session recording, is probably used at most by 3 or 4% of your visitors, the really, really knowledgeable ones, right? So I want the camo series and I want it in yellow, okay? Maybe I can select that, and extra large buttons, and I want a certain price, and it's filtering, and it's all very mechanical. And you know why? Because the people that design e-commerce website software are software engineers, and this is how they think. So to them, this doesn't represent much complexity. To actual human beings that are not software engineers, this is way too much and it's overload. So my recommendation on advanced search, hide it. Make maybe 1 or 2 dimensions accessible. I might care about what color my watch is. That's legitimate. It's a fashion statement. But I certainly don't care about a bunch of other features or technical specifications. So don't give those to me in the first place. All right. Also, this page is an example of just a product summary that's showing too much information. The watches are fairly small, and they're the things that I really want to see. And then you have a bunch of, I mean, I know that's just the model name under the watch, but man, that's 5 lines of model name. That's crazy. Couldn't you show up with a shorter name that everybody understands, but doesn't have to be that technical? And then you have really, really obnoxious red pricing. And why is, I mean, if you're trying to draw attention to it, you're drawing attention to the pricing line and not the actual products. So don't you want me to actually see the products? Presumably that's more important. So having these giant red arrows with the pricing isn't very helpful. Too much information on this page as well. You should focus on one thing or another. Actually, let's talk about pricing for a second. I'm just going to blow up one of these pricing blocks and look at it in more detail. ship same day, but since everything on your site seems to ship same day, that doesn't matter. But let's look at the pricing block again. You have the RRP, then you have a giant price, and then you have a savings. So that may all be important information, but by making the price physically bigger and putting it in red and bolding it and drawing attention to it, you have to understand that pricing is processed by the same evolutionary part of the brain as physical pain. We reuse parts of the brain. So physical pain, emotional pain, and pricing pain are all mapped to pain. So by making the price bigger, you're making it say, this really hurts. When we take this money out of your wallet, this is a loss of a resource, which has survival implications. Ouch. So try to make your prices as small as possible. Don't make them gigantic. If you want to focus on something, if you want to make something big, focus on the savings or the strike through price that you're not paying. And by the way, yes, since I'm not going to pay that $279, it's a little unclear, go ahead and cross it out with a strike through. But focus on the savings, like you're saving this much pain. Don't focus on the amount I'm actually going to pay. All right, so.
Can I mention something about the color as well, Tim?
Yes, please.
We did a lot of testing on various sites over the years when we looked at the color of action buttons. So on every page on the website, you're trying to guide people to do something, and red tends to be it stands out. It's much more of a warning color than a you should look at this and click on it color. So it might be worth testing with an A/B test tool, a green price or something that fits in with the color of the theme that's not quite as bright and scary.
Yeah, that's a great point. And by the way, people ask me a lot, what should the button color be? And the answer is it should be unique on the page if there's a primary call to action you want me to take, and it should be complementary on the other side of the color wheel from the rest of your color theme. This one, unfortunately, is black and white primarily. But for example, if you had a light blue color theme, a bright orange, which is on the other side of the color wheel from it, would be a great action button. But you can't have, I mean, look at this just on this screenful. I have 12 red things. Holy crap. That's from the Department of Redundancy department. That's a little too much red. So if you have a primary call to action, there should be one of them on the page. The other stuff should be separated into secondary colors. And so you're doing the visual prioritization of what you want me to do on the page. And again, I actually wouldn't focus on the price. Why don't you sell me on the quality of the watch? Those buttons should be a lot more benign, and they should say see details. So you should go to the product detail page, and then you can show me how wonderful the watch is, and only then hit me with the price, because they all kind of look the same, and one has ridiculously higher prices than others. I'm going to disqualify that automatically. But if you got to build the value proposition of all the great features and benefits of that watch, then showed me the price, then you're ahead of the game. But that's a great opportunity to look at a product detail page. To me, this is too small of a product image, just like it was on the matrix in the previous page. Again, I suggest widening that out to 4 columns and getting rid of that filtering column on the left, making all the product images bigger. But here, this is like, I want to see the details, and this is a very detailed watch, and even when I click on it, it's still not giving me enough detail. And in fact, it's kind of a blurry, I don't know if you can see this, kind of a blurry image. I mean, this stuff should be razor sharp, full screen, so I can see every little booger on that watch. Because it's only about twice as big as the image on the regular page, on this product detail page. The other thing that I would want here is there's a lot of text here on this page, and it's all surrounding it. And the thing you want me to do, which is the price and the add to cart button, are lost in the sea of whiteness surrounded by all this randomly placed text. What I suggest you do on a product detail page is create an action block. So you have a big picture of the watch, and to the right of it, you have an action block, and the add to cart button is going to be prominently featured inside of that. Because if we look right now, the add to cart button is not the most prominent thing on this page. Besides the hero shot of the image, which again should actually be bigger, the pricing is much more, I guess, violent, and the G-Shock logo down here is much more prominent. Even the Casio authorized stuff and same-day shipping, all of these visual elements are stronger than the add to cart button. And that's a no-no, because the add to cart button is what you actually want me to do on this page. Another suggestion is, I've seen this a lot on product detail pages where the name of the product is squeezed into a single column. It shouldn't be. This whole page is about this model, so it should be a spanning title across the whole top, not just squeezed into one little column. Anybody want to add anything on that one? All right, let's move on to Tennis Direct here. And Tennis Direct has some really strong colors. I believe, again, too wide of a header bar. That's probably 3 centimeters too tall. It shouldn't be that big. It's mostly empty space. If you rearrange a few things, you should be able to save that screen real estate again. And then what we have here is essentially a bunch of commercials. You have a commercial for a single product, then you have balls, then you have something in French. Sorry, no parlez-vous. Don't even know what that means. So basically, it's a bunch of commercials, and all of them are actually very, very different visual styles. So it's kind of a grab bag. I feel like I'm in a bargain basement mall with closeouts. You know, everything's competing for my attention. It's like this Turkish bazaar. It's like, come into my stall. Hey, you want to buy some carpets? You want some hashish? You want to buy my sister? You know, it's like everybody screaming at you to come into their stall. That's what this website is doing, and it doesn't need to. I'm already on your site. Why don't you just give me a clean, organized navigation that lets me get to what I want? And what's that going to be? It's going to be your navigation bar, only it's going to be repeated inside the page. Presumably, those menu items at the top are the way you've organized your site. And presumably, there are some things that deserve more real estate and more prominence than others. If it's Tennis Direct, I expect you to sell rackets and maybe grips and tennis balls, consumable items like that. So this homepage should be effectively a restatement of all of those things in the nav bar. You can't expect me to go back to the nav bar and look at that tiny little reverse color all cap text and use that for navigation. Actually, let me put that more strongly. I will never go back to your navigation unless there's a failure of your page body and I can't figure out what to do next. Okay, so give me that permanent navigation repeated in the page body. Normally, I just skip the whole header and navigation bar. So it needs to be repeated and rolled out in visual form. These same blocks can remain. This block should be for your biggest category, presumably rackets. Okay, the next one could be balls, but they should be representing category level images and not just commercials that I click through on.
I've just got something to add there, Tim.
Yeah.
It's something I learned when I did user testing a while ago, watching people using the website and just regarding menus and having categories on the page. Some people like to use menus and some people never use menus. And I was just reminded of this the other day. I was watching my wife navigating a e-commerce store and she dived straight for the menus. And I thought, oh, you know, I had this thing that women never use menus. Well, they do. It's just different people like to use menus. Different people will stay away from them and they'll need to get the navigation that where they want to go will have to come from the page itself. So I think sometimes we can think when we're designing a site, well, I like to have menus so everyone else will. But you've got to have menus exactly. As well as navigation on the page.
I'd say you should use a belt and suspenders approach. Don't count on them just using the menu.
Yeah.
It should, you should replicate it in the body of the page, which is where they're looking. I mean, look, the menus are tiny, low contrast, and in a place that we're used to skipping on the way down to the high contrast body of the page. So this is the part of the page, the middle part, that we expect to be paying attention to. And it's fine to make some real strong category level navigation areas there. And then we go down below and we have individual rackets. Again, let's see if anyone has the self-discipline to do this, but you should not have any individual products on your homepage. I'll say it again. And here we have, well, rackets are a grab bag, but maybe you want some apparel. Oh, wait, how about some shoes? And these are, again, nothing but guesses. However, this down here is actually very useful. The brands is buried way too far down the page. So I can shop by product category, or in this case, I know what I want. I want a Wilson racket. I've been using Wilson rackets forever. That's what I want. And so you want to have an entry point for brands which are a much bigger brand than, frankly, your e-commerce website, and those should be above the fold somewhere on that first screen, not down, buried down this far below. All right, let's go on to our next contestant. Okay, this is a little bit of a slightly different e-commerce site. This is for Sublimation Systems. Now, they sell, I guess, printers and printer supplies, but pretty high-end stuff. I don't think I've ever used a 24-inch wide Epson printer. So presumably these are being sold to other businesses. So we just have one featured giant printer with ink cartridges, then a bunch of stuff going down the site, motion, and then all of a sudden we have things that cost literally $1.31 each. Now I'm guessing if I went to buy this printer, it's going to cost me a lot, like thousands, before I'm done. I don't even know if they talk about the price on this page, but it's, yep, several $1,000s. Okay, then why are you talking to me on the same page as this high-end printing system about consumable supplies for it that cost $1.31? What you should be saying is buy printers, buy accessories and supplies. You can't do both. Otherwise, it's just kind of this bizarre dissonance between thousands of dollars and single dollars. By the way, most of the people that are, you guys are the experts in this, and you sell certain printers, certain model lines. If I go to a menu like this, and it's a super complicated drop-down menu with way too many choices under it, how am I supposed to figure this out? In other words, this is a mistake that many, especially technical websites, make. They assume that the people coming here are experts to the same degree that they are. So, hey, you know all these models. I mean, come on, look, it's the Epson F560-24 versus the Epson 9460 64-inch one. I mean, come on, it's obvious. One's like twice as big. Well, I don't know that. Okay, so instead, especially with a multi-$1,000 sale, if you actually expect me to sell this, you should be doing one of two things. You should be giving me high quality pre-sale information to guide me towards the right model, or you should be driving me to talk to you in order to buy, because I don't feel comfortable dropping $4 grand on your website without talking to a human being in the first place. So let's talk about each of those approaches for expensive items. The first is, don't focus on the individual products. You have nothing on this site that I can find quickly that's supporting the people earlier in the sales funnel at the awareness stage or the interest. They're narrowing down their choices. They don't even know what they want. Hey, I want to print on t-shirts and glass. Which printer is right for me? Well, great. You could have a little wizard that walks me through. And what are the pros and cons? Okay, this one costs a lot more up front, but then the consumables, because of the technology we're using, are going to be a lot cheaper. And so the overall cost of ownership is going to be less. So don't be deceived by the high upfront price. So those are the kind of things that I would first need to know and get educated about before I spend any money. And I don't see anything here. Again, it's an example of what I call greedy marketer syndrome, where we're squeezing the bottom of the sales funnel and hoping dollar signs come out. And what you need to do is support people throughout the whole customer journey, especially on complicated, expensive products like this. Okay, Rod, Nathan, unless you have another comment, I'm going to go to one of my rare positive comments for Petsu. So Petsu, if you're listening,
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, are they here? Okay.
I was going to say, I really like this website as well, Tim. So, and especially the search bar right in the middle at the top. So I hope we can chat about that too.
Okay. Well, the thing I was going to compliment is I don't know what's down at the bottom. Yep, it's too bad they're actual products. But if we look at the top, it's category level navigation, which is great. It's real obvious. If I have a dog, then I'm going to go to the dog section. If I have cats, which I do, I have 3 of them now, I'm going to go there. And that's all I need. You don't need to have me buy on the home page. I'll say it again. Don't put products on the home page. Get me closer to my goal. And if you create the architecture on your page with the right categories and clearly delineate them, this one's pretty obvious. You put the type of animal on there, then I would get closer to my goal by going to the cats portion of the site. The only problem I have with the categories here is the on sale section. Now, how did you choose to designate on sale? A couple of cute dogs. Unfortunately, that conflicts with the dog here in the upper left. So now I'm unsure which is the dog category, just from a quick visual look. Also, a recommendation that if you do have category level images, you make them collages so I don't confuse them with individual products. In other words, the dog category should have multiple dogs, big ones, little ones, whichever ones show the greatest physical variety of products in the category. Same goes with birds and cats and even reptiles. You put snakes as well as lizards on it. So get rid of the on sale, because what does that even mean? Most of you, if you have an on sale or clearance, what you're doing is you're effectively reproducing the whole main navigation behind the on sale area. In other words, look, I can still sort on the left-hand side here by the animals. Not all of these are presumably for every kind of animal. I'm guessing I don't need a dog harness to walk my bird. Am I right? So on sale only becomes relevant once I'm down at the category or even subcategory level. I strongly suggest that most of you eliminate the sale item from your top nav bar, because it's only relevant in context. If we go down here to the bottom, there's an important element here, which is the payment methods. Now, they're made very small and they're at the bottom, but they're not anywhere on top. I suggest that if you take a variety of payment methods, you put them in the top navigation here in the header. That's important. Also, again, brands are kind of important and they're a shortcut here. But again, I think that I would even get rid of brands, because a lot of brands are pet specific. In other words, if I click on NexGard, you're just going to make me pick cats or dogs. It's a flea treatment. Or maybe even horses. I don't know, probably no flea treatment for horses, but you get the point. So a lot of these are either tied to a particular category or they're span most categories. So I would probably not put the pet brands on this page. So when I get down to dogs, then I would have subcategories. Again, this is a pretty deep product line. So again, I wouldn't drop down into individual products here. I would actually have the subcategories: collars, harnesses, flea treatments. There's probably way too many in this nav bar. I tried to get that down somehow. And this is also a great time to discuss the fact that you should probably have a catch-all miscellaneous category. Not everything deserves its own category. Presumably, at some point you have to cut it off and say miscellaneous, dog doors or training equipment, or I don't know, whatever the specific things are. You probably, when it gets down to below 10% of your total sales in that category, throw the rest of the crap into a miscellaneous category. Don't make these super long lists. Instead, make sure that you have useful main categories and subcategories that are no more than 6, 8, maybe 10 deep, because anything beyond that just becomes impossible for me to process. I have to read each one of these category names here on the left and figure out which one I want. And sometimes what makes things even worse is that a lot of these categories are not mutually exclusive. So if I want to train my dog, that's training equipment, but I want to house train them, well, guess what? I'm guessing that that's going to really mess somebody up. They don't know exactly what to do. Also, flea and tick treatments versus worming treatments, things like this, you should try to kind of say pet health, because you already have healthcare, worming, heartworm prevention, flea and tick. In other words, it's better to go deep and narrow than it is to go wide. What you're doing here with this information architecture is you're going really bushy. You had dogs, and now you have 20 subcategories under dogs. It's okay to have 6 or 7 subcategories, each of them having 3 or 4 subcategories. So don't expose everything all at once. It's too much and it's overwhelming. Comments, thoughts, tears and being shed in the background?
Got one for you there, Tim.
Yeah.
Just with regards to mentioning wide versus deep with the categories, Some systems like this, I think there'll be a few Neato users here. There's a limitation with the depth of categories sometimes out of the box, or perhaps the system that you're importing your data from has a limitation with depth of categories. And but don't let that stop you. You could use a content page as your top level category and then start using the built-in categories underneath that, so that you don't have this situation where you've got a lot of categories.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of them allow you to create quote unquote collection pages of clusters of products, and you can use that as effectively a sub category if you need to. But you make a very important point. It's a good thing we're on a pet site, because my comment is don't let the technology tail wag the usability dog. Okay, this should be focused on making sure there's a good user experience for your visitors. And if you have a crappy e-commerce platform and it's really that restrictive, maybe it's time to switch it up, because there's certainly no shortage of good e-commerce systems out there.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about one other thing here. I know it's a little hard on product line like this, and you're getting stuff pulled from different, how would you say, product feeds and different manufacturers. But one other thing I noticed on here is the rather odd selection of pictures. You have pictures against a white background. You have some that have banners and collections of stuff and show the packaging in the box. And then you have some things that are not against a white background, like the gray background around that bottle. And in some, you just have the label and the packaging here. That's a solid color. And you're making them sort of fit into white squares, but with very thin gray key lines around them, but it's real subtle. So I would say that you have to make sure that all of your pictures match, that they're in the same visual style. Otherwise, it looks like something doesn't belong here. And that's makes the professionalism of your site suspect. So even if you have to reshoot some stuff, now I know there's practical limits, especially if you have thousands of items, but certainly for your top categories, for your expensive items, make sure that when you get a matrix page like this of different ones, that you can see them to be from the same kind of mold, if you will, with the same editorial visual style. That's very important. Take the extra care to make sure that you get the right images, even if you have to create them yourself. All right. Now I think the next one we're going to look at is discount art supplies here. And again, I'll skip through the email grab here. Don't do this unless I'm leaving. And then what do we have here at the top of the page? We have a very colorful site. Now it's selling art supplies. But one of the things that I'd say is, again, you're not following this is often very confusing to people. You have one set of navigation on your navigation bar. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items on there. And then you only have 5 items that I can see here at the top. If we go down to popular categories, we now have 6 items, still not matching 10, okay? And then we have featured items, and I'm supposed to use this little navigation to flip to new arrivals or on sale. Expecting me to use this kind of in-page navigation or tabbed architecture to have submenus inside the page is basically nobody does it, okay? So check out your web analytics, but I can promise you nobody's doing it. The popular categories, this is actually pretty useful, and this is what I'd start with. I wouldn't feature something like Christmas sale and gifts, because again, if I know that somebody likes to do watercolors, I'll go to the watercolor section. If they're starting out painting, I'll maybe get them an easel. That'll be my gift. I don't really see how a gift suggestion category does any better at that, because how do you know who I'm shopping for? Which is actually a great point. A lot of this kind of stuff, if you're a professional artist, you're probably buying your own stuff and you know what you want, but a lot of art supplies and things like that are bought for kids. And you might want to say, hey, here's something for little kids. Here's something for teenagers. Here's something for adults, and maybe shop that way. It's not always appropriate to do it by age, but I would just challenge you to consider whether that's appropriate for art. I'm an artist myself, so I mean, the kinds of art implements I gave my kids when they were little are certainly different than the ones I would offer them now when they're teenagers. Also, if we go down here to the bottom, again, we have sliders with selected items. And then we have news. Please, please, please get rid of news. Nobody's coming to your e-commerce site to see who your featured artist is. I'm sorry, they're just not. So doing that is distracting. And how about reviews from real customers? It's great to have reviews. Looks like you have 812 of them. Kudos on that. Looks like you're pretty well established. But to have them in a scrolling slider, really horrible idea because it's triggering motion. And again, I can't avoid looking at motion in the middle of this page, and it overwhelms my ability to examine the next, any other content on the page. So think about your site as having a visual hierarchy: text, graphics, and anything that's moving or in motion. In the presence of graphics, text won't get read. In the presence of motion, graphics and text won't get examined. So if you want to deliberately control the visual hierarchy of your page, you don't have to get louder than everything else on the page. You actually just need to tone your page down and prioritize with more subtle stuff. Don't use motion unless it's an absolute necessity. And I have yet to see an e-commerce site where motion is. All right, moving on to ClockShop. Cuckoo Clock Specialist. Now that pretty much says it all. I like it as where it starts with the cuckoo clocks, and then it quickly falls apart for me because instead of being high-end cuckoo clock people, I now see watches for $79. I see alarm clocks. I see pocket watches, and then I see kind of modern stuff. I mean, there's some, cool, fun stuff, but the positioning doesn't work. You have this kind of brown logo, says ClockShop, and I'm expecting cuckoo clocks. And then I have all of this other stuff. So perhaps cuckoo clocks are what you're known for, but you just kind of want to draft off of that by selling all of these other things. And I'd say that I would probably make it clear that you focus on cuckoo clocks, and that should get the vast majority of the real estate. I know, have you ever been to the eye doctor and they make you do that eye chart? They start with the really big letter E on top and then smaller letters. And then when you get down to the bottom for 20/20 vision, they're really small. You can arrange your categories on this main screen the same way. Nothing says you have to give equal tiled size to every category. You can have a big featured category, cuckoo clocks, shop here. You might even expose the subcategories, German made versus music boxes or whatever is relevant in that area. And then say, modern clocks or wristwatches or pocket watches. And those get a smaller amount of attention and smaller screen real estate lower down. So remember, nothing says they have to be in some kind of tiled grid format, except again, your e-commerce system probably comes with that as a template. The other thing I would say though, is these are beautiful clocks. And at least on my monitor, again, at 4K resolution, it's not looking so great. The detail is kind of hazy. So if you're going to take the time to create, to sell expensive stuff like this and sell it on your site, you have to have images that are worth it. And I want to see the quality of the images, not necessarily kind of this somebody painted a purple section of the wall behind the clock, either that torn paper look, or I'm not sure what you're going for there, but I want to see the products and I want to see them pristine and razor sharp, and I'm not getting that. It's also unclear to me what your product selection is because it only shows 2. So if I go to cuckoo clocks, I'm guessing you sell a lot more than that. Yep, guess what? You sell dozens and dozens of clocks. And again, this is a case where not only are they expensive, but it's also something I'm unlikely to have experience with. There are very few people that would call themselves cuckoo clock specialists. I mean, you guys are among them because you sell them. But as a consumer, how do I tell the difference among these? There's just too many choices. Guess how many there are that you sell? 413. Do you really expect me to scroll through these intricate, super detailed things in this tiny little thumbnail size and then pick them? No. Or do you expect me to go to do the navigation on the left? That's too much work too, because I have to spend all of my cognitive power to just understand what these menus and sub choices are. Batteries required, materials. So this is a perfect opportunity with something that's complex, that's expensive, that I don't have a lot of experience with, to guide me to my selection. From this overwhelming 413 products, instead of exposing them all at this level, you should instead have me go into a wizard. If I walked into your store, you'd quickly be able to qualify me, and you'd say something like, "Hello, sir. What are you looking for today?" "Oh, a cuckoo clock. Great. Well, have you ever had one before?" "No." "Well, let me just ask you a few questions, and I might be able to help. Do you want them? Is it important to you that it looks authentic and is made of real wood, or are you okay with plastic or acrylic or resin or something like that?" "Oh, you want real wood? Great." Now, some of these, there's a kind of a trade-off between battery-operated ones, which are more accurate, and more traditional ones that have the counterweighted little things that you have to reset once a week. Do you want a really authentic look, or are you okay with batteries? "Oh, you're okay with batteries," and so on. So by asking me 3 or 4 questions, you could probably very quickly zero me in on a product selection and say, "Well, I suggest you look at these 3." And then it's not overwhelming me with choice, because what you're doing here, this is the e-commerce equivalent of me walking into your store and you going, "Blah," and you threw up all over me and you go, "Please clean up the mess yourself." That's not a very friendly experience. Choice kills. 413 products. Are you freaking kidding me? So you need to create a wizard that effectively encompasses, through a series of obvious questions, your knowledge about the important ways to buy a cuckoo clock. And you may not need them for every category, but you do need a cuckoo clock buying wizard probably. And that will, I guarantee you, skyrocket your sales if you build a thoughtful wizard experience. By the way, I'm not talking about anything fancy technologically. This is just a series of Lightbox popovers which ask me questions and then guide me to a result set of probably 3 to 5 different items. And before you even show me that, grab an email address, say, "Hey, would you like us to email you your choices?" And now you know exactly how I answered those wizard questions, as well as the product selection, and you know what products I'm interested in. So hopefully you have some intelligent email follow-up that you could do to increase the likelihood of sale. So very, very important for complex, expensive products that are rarely used by consumers or rarely bought by consumers. Create a wizard for the main category. All right, let's go on to, there we go, Balloon Saloon. Need balloons? We can help. Okay, couple of things. One is overall production quality. Now, I'm sorry you may disagree with me, but I find this site to be a little bit on the cheesy side. The production quality, it doesn't just work from a design standpoint. Your product shots, look at these pictures here. They're different colors. This one is really colorful on the left with the loose latex balloons, but some of these other ones, they look like really poorly lit. I know these are giant constructions made out of balloons, and you're showcasing your talent at doing that, but at the same time, you're putting it kind of in the middle of your store, or some of these shots have really poor lighting. So you really have to, again, get consistent and take pride of ownership. This is your product that you're selling, these balloon creations. The fact that these images are different heights is also a problem. And then you go here to a black background, which is very industrial and nothing to do with fun or parties or high-end stuff. And so I'm just finding this, like, your product's good, your showcasing of the product via the website and the quality of the pictures is pretty horrible. And then you have this really bargain basement stuff of paper plates and napkins. That a lot of times, if you sell one thing, which is the balloons, the stuff like this doesn't even belong on your site. What I mean by that is maybe it's in a miscellaneous category, or maybe, and this is often an upsell opportunity, it should be done during checkout. Great. You're checking out with these 200 balloons you bought and we'll deliver them. Would you like fries with that, as we say at McDonald's, right? this is the time to sell me plastic spoons and plates and napkins. It's not, while don't pollute the balloon buying experience with it, do it after they start checking out as an upsell. Okay. Also, the video itself, this I was talking about the not having motion. The one exception to it is experiential event stuff. So this is actually not a horrible use of video. The problem is actually the quality of the video. It's very low resolution. It's the lighting is horrible. Some of these things look high end. These balloons look like they're on a yacht, for example. But you should have a professional video shot before the party in 4K with proper lighting. And then use that for your site. Go to your fanciest black tie events, give them 25% off, saying, can we come in an hour before the event and film the staging? Because that's when it's going to look good, before everybody gets drunk and drops their wine glasses or beer on the floor. So make sure you get the shots if you really want to impress and saying we're like high-end event specialists. All right, well, I think we're getting close to our hour here. And so I know I could go on like this until I lose my voice, which I'm in the process of doing. But I want to just mention a couple of things here before we throw it open for the open Q&A. And so let me do that, Rod, and then I'll bring it right back to you.
No worries, Tim.
Yeah, so as Rod mentioned, I'm pretty well known in conversion rate optimization. I used to run the Conversion Conference and speak all over the world about it. I've written a couple of best-selling books called Landing Page Optimization. You can buy them at Booktopia. It's the blue cover is the second latest edition. But I just wrote a new book about evolutionary psychology. Now, even though it's not strictly applied to marketing, I promise you, if you go through it with a marketing mindset, you'll learn a lot about how our brain really works, how we make decisions, how we evaluate risk and choice, and what influences us. So if you're interested in using it for business, for personal relationships, or for self-help and to understand yourself better, again, go right here. I made a little URL for you, tiny.cc/unleash_booktopia. If you go there, you'll be able to find the book. The Australian edition is actually amazingly out ahead of the US one, which won't even release till next April. So you guys in Australia and New Zealand can get your hands on my paperback several months before anybody else. And if you've liked what I've had to say, one of the things that I offer is a very no-holds-barred website review. Normally, I charge $5,000 US for it, but since I was told, your dollar is a little weaker, I made it easy for you. It's not only half price, it's also in Aussie dollars. 100% guaranteed. If you hate what I have to say after the first hour and a half, I will give you your money back. I believe, Rod, you and Nathan are subsidizing only like the first 5 of these at the discounted rate. So if anyone's interested in this, I strongly suggest you email me and kind of get in the queue, tim@timash.com, and the subject line is, "My baby is ugly, help." Okay. So Rod, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to rip apart some Australian websites, and I'd love to get into a conversation with the audience and with you guys.
Thanks very much, Tim. I'll just add to your offer there for the people. So I think I spoke, it wasn't to you, it was your business partner at the time, and this was going back about 12 years. So it was one of the very first times that I actually engaged a consultant to look at my website and say, how can I make things better? And it was extremely valuable. So it's if it's something that you're thinking about doing, I can thoroughly recommend it. It changed the way that I looked at optimization from that point forward.
Wow, thank you, Rod. I appreciate that.
So we've got a couple of questions there. Look, if people have noticed that you can put in questions, I've been answering a few as we've gone along. There's a couple that I've just left for Tim, but if you've got anything, just fire away. And if you'd rather not type, you'd like to be released to speak, then I do have the power to do that as well. So you can just ask that in the question.
Yeah, and again, I'm very accessible. These are all the ways to reach me. So feel free to maybe grab a screenshot of this, and we'll send you the deck, by the way, after the webinar, so you'll have all of this detail there as well.
All right. So do you want me just to read the question, Tim, if it's for you specifically, or if I think it's
Yeah,
for you
well,
specifically?
I think that we're all qualified to speak on these subjects, so I
Yeah.
welcome you and Nathan taking the lead. And if I have something to say, you know me, I won't hold back.
All right. Oh, you can see the questions from your side. All right. Okay. So as far as this is, a few people have asked this in different ways. One is having products on your homepage. If you have popular items, doesn't it help grab people's attention? So my view, and this is from listening to Tim talk a lot, but also just in practical terms, is that don't worry about trying to grab people's attention. The reason why people are at your website because they want to find something, they want to actually find the right product and purchase it. So if you think about that when you're thinking about your design, you don't need to worry about grabbing people's attention. The people have landed on your website for a reason. So your job now is to help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah, I would say that that's a really important point. If you're out there in the world and you're trying to have somebody notice you, if you're running a banner ad on somebody else's site, be obnoxious, use motion, use animation, get their attention because you don't know what context they'll be seen in. But once they get to your site, give them a bullshit-free zone. In fact, I suggest your website has a Zen-like stillness out of which the calls to action naturally arise. And not very many of us would describe our site as having a Zen-like stillness. So remember, you're not competing with anyone once they're on your site. So why would you start competing with yourself?
You got anything there that you think you would tackle, Nathan?
Yeah, as far as the products on the homepage, we've tried that a few times and it never really worked very well. And the way we think about it is that your homepage and the top of your page, especially above the fold, is that's prime real estate. If you're a bricks and mortar store, that would be your front window. So anyone walking past needs to know what you're about. You know, are you friendly? Are you trustworthy? What do you sell? So the only reason we would put a specific product on our homepage is if we had a very small selection and we only sold 1 or 2 products, or if it was just such a massive offer and huge discount that it would nearly be an instant sale if we were to put something up there. But for our business, we sell 15,000 products. Yeah, we would not put an individual product on the homepage.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm a little unclear. Audience, are you seeing us or the placeholder screen? Maybe somebody could chat and just say, are you seeing our videos right now or are you just seeing the placeholder screen?
I'll just drop that in the chat.
Because I'm looking at the audience preview and it's just showing the little webinar title slide that GoToWebinar uses. Anyway, we can still keep asking questions.
Oh, you can't see questions? Okay, I'll fix that, nice.
The other thing I was going to mention was how important search can be, especially for sites with a larger catalog. And we've been through that ourselves and looked at different search solutions, and we pretty quickly discovered that most search out of the box for an e-commerce platform that you pay for is pretty ordinary. So we ended up looking for third-party solutions. So when we looked at the data, it turned out that only 15 to 20% of our visitors would use search, but that accounted for over 50% of our site revenue. So for us, it was in our site design, it was very important to make search fairly clear in the header for people to use it and make the experience really fast and really good to help people get to content quickly. So we implemented search in a slightly different way on our costumes website if people wanted to have a look at that, but it works very well for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. Search is critical. And one of the things you should be looking at is popular searches that bring back 0 results. Okay, because that's basically money you're losing. And so even if you have to, most of these search results systems will allow you to hardwire a result. So even if it doesn't, where do you want this to go? So if they misspell a common product, take them to where they need to go anyway. I've seen this in wine sites. Veuillez cliquer. I don't know how to spell weird French, chateau names, and I'm bound to get it wrong, but it's really expensive stuff and you want me to find it. So help me stumble onto it by doing misspellings, again, looking for popular searches with 0 results, and make sure there's a page that it goes to that's relevant.
I think I'll take this one from John Wakefield. Thanks for your question, John, regarding SEO. So I think anytime you ask an SEO question, I would first ask the question, does this actually help our visitors find where they need to go? So I think anytime you do something that actually helps your visitors find what they're looking for, then you're also going to be helping your SEO. So I would flip it around. So go, okay, does it help with navigation in general for the user? Does it make it easier? Now you can do things within best practice of SEO, but I'd ask the question about, is it better for user first? If you do that, I'm willing to bet 100% that it will also be good for your SEO.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the whole history of search and how Google started out, it was about, keyword stuffing and on-page stuff, and then it was about authoritative inbound links, and people tried to game that with link farms. But now it's all about the user experience. The reason Google developed the Chrome browser is so they could watch what you do on the site. They can watch whether you click on buttons. They can watch whether you bounce off the page. So they're actually weighing user experience very heavily. I'd say it's a golden age for conversion and SEO coming together right now. So if you have a good user experience that's effective, that's what's going to get you the most SEO juice these days.
All right, Nathan can't see questions right now, so I've got one here which I might fire at you from. Hang on, let me just go back a bit. Oh, okay. So Donna Morrow's got a heap of questions actually. You mentioned A/B testing of button colors, and if you had any recommended apps for that for Shopify, if you've used them.
In my experience, we've used a couple over the years. Visual Website Optimizer, which has now become quite expensive. There's another business called Optimizely, which is also good, but has become expensive.
Well, they just got bought by Episerver, yeah. So
yeah.
in fact, I just had an interview with their CEO. Yeah, so that's an enterprise platform now. Yeah. So Optimizely is not going to get any cheaper, I promise you that.
It used to be good. So now we use a free product called Google Optimize. So that integrates with Google Analytics. It's pretty easy to set up. And the only thing to keep in mind is you need to make sure you've got enough traffic to really test a hypothesis well. So, if it might be that you have to put a test together that might run for a month or two to try and get a result. So the more traffic you have, the easier it's going to be to get some quick results to test a few things.
Yeah, and just some quick words on testing. Obviously, I have a couple of chapters on that in my landing page optimization book, but many of you, I'm sorry, especially in Australia, don't have the traffic volumes to test, period. Unless you have a high volume site and you have at least 10 conversion actions a day for a simple A/B split test that might still run a month, you can't do it. So you have to rely on qualitative stuff, user feedback, things like that to improve things, or make changes. And if you don't step off the cliff in the bad direction, just keep them. Some of it's going to be shooting in the dark a little bit. The other is premature stopping of tests. That's often a problem. Make sure you have statistical significance in the patience to run the test, even if you do have the traffic, because otherwise it's not much better than a coin flip.
Yeah, there's actually, sorry, go on.
Yeah, go. I was going to say other tools you can use.
Yeah, well, just on statistical significance, there is a couple of free websites where you can put in how much volume of data you have, and it can tell you how many measurements you need to get for a statistical significant result.
Yeah, because remember, in terms of how much data you need, it's not the number of unique visitors or hits, God forbid, is what you're counting or something like that. It's the number of conversion actions. So one way to increase the number of conversion actions is to go upstream and measure something that's not your end result, which might be a sale, but it might be a put to cart, because you know that a third of your carts end up buying. So you get more people to put things in cart, presumably that's not going to change on the back end. So you've in effect multiplied your data rate by 3 by counting puts to cart. If you're testing parts of your site that are ahead of the cart experience, that's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, it's the exact same principle is applied in advertising, or Facebook advertising is my expertise. So if you don't, especially when you're starting off an advertising campaign, if you don't have enough conversion actions that have already happened at that level, it's converted or it's a purchase, then you can jump down to initiate checkout. How many actual confirmed actions do we have for that particular ad set there? Or if we don't yet have enough, we go down to add to cart, and that can give you an idea of whether something is going to be a winner. You still rely ultimately on the purchase action, but it does give you a guide. So if you've got an ad set you've been running for a week, you've spent, $100 on, and you don't yet have any, any initiate checkout actions, it's a good chance it's just going to be a loser. So
yeah, and then but just a counterweight to that, which is a lot of people lump their mobile and desktop traffic together. That's a big no-no. The user experiences are so radically different in most cases that you can't combine those. So you have to separately measure desktop and mobile results.
Yeah, and for those people who don't have a lot of traffic, there's still a few ways you can get some really good feedback on changes that you can make to your website. So one of them is usertesting.com. So you can actually get real users. You give them a task, and you can get 20 or 50 people to go and do that task, and they'll provide really good feedback on what they did on the website and how they found the experience. That can be really good. And there's another tool that we've used. There's a few similar tools around, but one of them is called Lucky Orange. And that's just a little bit of JavaScript you can put on your website, and that actually records user sessions. So you can actually see where people click with the mouse and what they do, how long they stay, and that can really help you analyze how real traffic on your website is using it, and whether they're clicking on the banner ad you're hoping they're going to click on or not. So you can discover some interesting stuff.
Yeah, those are both good qualitative types of tools, and you can often learn a lot from. If you are going to set up user testing tests, you have to kind of define the task you want them to do on your website. My strong suggestion is you put time pressure on them. So first you might say, okay, find the cheapest pair of women's high-heeled red shoes on this site and buy it. Okay, you have 3 minutes. Okay, because you don't want them talking out loud or being very deliberate because you're paying them to do the test. And then at the end, you can ask some post questions that get a little more insights, like what did you find difficult about doing this, or were you able to complete the task, and that kind of stuff. But just have them do the task and under extreme time pressure.
That's a good tip. That was a mistake I made early on with user testing. I gave a fairly detailed set of requirements, but also to have them actually explain in detail as they were going, and I think that resulted in a test that really wasn't like an actual real user.
Yeah, people will rationalize stuff, and if you're having them talk out loud in the middle of the task, that totally uses a different part of the brain.
Yeah, it's not how we behave when we actually shop online, is it? Yeah.
Yep. Nope. Yep. We're hunting and gathering. We're not farming.
So there's a few questions regarding e-commerce platforms. My take on when you're choosing an e-commerce platform, there's the main players. There's Shopify, there's Magento, there's Neato. I think the best thing is to work out what are your actual requirements and then choose a platform to fit that, rather than go, okay, which one is better? Because most platforms I think will suit everyone. I often have people ask, I'm currently on this platform, should I switch to this one? I think we'll just be clear about what your requirements are, because sometimes you'll find if you want to switch, you're going to then lose some functionality that you previously had that you now realize that you really need. So I think spend the time to actually scope what your requirements are. What do you need the platform to actually do? Do you need it? Do you need a lot of automation? Do you need it to connect to multiple marketplaces? Does it need to support certain payment methods? Do you need to be able to have custom URLs, for example? That can be a really important question that people don't often think about. And when they get to Shopify, they go, oh, I can't actually do that. So yeah, make sure you understand what it is.
Yeah, great advice. And the first is the marketplaces. I mean, the hardest one is if you have physical stores and a website, and you want to manage them both off of the same system and do inventory on the back end and things like that. If you're just standing up a pure play e-commerce that's online only, then you have a lot more choices.
I saw someone was asking about the proof pop-up. Someone just bought a pair of shoes.
Yeah, sorry, I just deleted it. Yes, go. I'm glad you saw it.
Yeah, we actually use those on our side. We tested those as best we could at the time, and it seemed to improve conversion and trust. But I guess I'd like to know input, Tim and Rod, if you guys have used those before or what your experience has
Yeah,
been.
I've got strong
Sorry,
opinions, but
sorry,
I'll hear
I
Timmy's
didn't get the
first.
question. Maybe you're seeing it, I'm not seeing it.
It was regarding the, yeah, sorry, I deleted the question, my bad. The pop-ups in the bottom left-hand corner, this person just bought.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to hear your take, Tim, but I've got very strong opinions about it.
Well, you know, my problem is all of these behavioral economics tricks that people use, like scarcity and time limits, and you know, only 2 left, and you have 30 seconds to act. You know, I mean, yes, it works, but when you start piling on too many of them, it can actually be counterproductive. So you have to understand, given the person's context, what they care about. Is it that it's custom? Is it that it's can be shipped quickly? They're responding to different things depending on the product and the vertical industry. Just piling on more pressure tactics, it doesn't always work. It's actually can be counterproductive.
Yeah, I remember when these first appeared, I think it was Kogan, if I remember rightly, it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And I don't know if they were the first, but they were definitely one of the first that introduced this idea. And I remember then we asked Nito to actually thought, oh, that's brilliant. Now let's get that coded up. And then I removed it after a few months because from my point of view, it became a distraction. Like it's a visual, something that was moving, and it was getting in the way of people finding what they needed to do. And then now, because everybody's doing it, to me personally, it just feels like a cheap grab for attention. I think. So personally, I think they actually cheapen your website. That is my opinion as a consumer.
I think now that they're common, there's probably less of a benefit as a trust symbol to have it, and it's so easy to make up random information to stick in that little box anyway. So how do you really know if the website's busy or not?
Yeah. Tim, have you got anything off the top of your head that would be an example of an e-commerce site that uses a wizard-like experience on a category page? I can think of like some SaaS
I
products.
have one in one of my presentations on Wizards, but no, I don't think that site's alive anymore. But again, what I'm talking about, folks, just let me clarify what a wizard is. It's a series of lightbox popovers with 2 to 4 way choices with 4 buttons, up to 4 buttons on them. So mutually exclusive choices, that's it. And then the end result of it is just a page with a collection of items in it, so which can be used by, you know, created in a lot of e-commerce systems. So here's your set of results if you go down that tree. A couple of key things: you don't have to surface your whole product line. Only drive them towards high profit, you know, common choices. You don't have to. You have 20,000 products, your wizard might only expose 100 or 200 of them. That's okay. But again, nothing fancy technologically. Can you create a light box with 3 or 4 buttons in it and title text? That's all a wizard is. It's the thinking about what questions to ask and in what order and what results to drive them towards. That's where the brain power comes in. Technologically, it's not hard.
There's a question from Julie Black regarding the space above the fold for product categories rather than hero image. Does it make your site look a bit bargain basement? That's a great question, because it's actually one that I often ask when I first started sort of subscribing to Tim's advice. If I go with the slider that everybody else has, it means that my website's not going to look pretty anymore. It's not going to look attractive and professional. I think you can do both. You can have a site that actually allows people to navigate to where they need to go. And if you've got one main set of categories, like Tim was saying, you could have that be like your hero category, and you could have some subcategories underneath that. So you're applying the same principle without actually just having one hero slider that does nothing to actually serve people in terms of
it's pretty simple. Don't have motion and don't waste screen real estate, especially at the top of the page. I mean, you know, when people ask me, what do you do instead? Well, whatever you had below it, just move it up, you'll do better. Okay, it's just that simple. I've never seen that not work. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know people love their sliders.
Especially on mobile, like screen real estate, especially above the fold on a mobile screen, so important.
Yeah.
And we did a test once where we had a thin banner across the top of the mobile site that said free shipping orders over $50, and we really thought that would help conversions. We ran an A/B test on it, probably for 100,000 users, so it was the confidence interval was good, and it actually decreased our conversion rate by 10%. And 10% is a pretty meaningful number to most people. So
that's a great example.
Really good
You've got to get out of
example.
people's way. Yeah.
Let them find what they want to find.
Do you know the best looking site I've ever seen? It's the one that made you the most money. That's it.
Exactly.
Don't
Doesn't
care
matter
if,
how it looks, as long as it converts
you know,
well.
your uncle likes it or your CEO or whatever. You just do what makes money. And I'm telling you, that's not distracting people from the task at hand.
So there's a question about social proof. I love these questions about social proof. I think the best kind of social proof is the ones that actually comes from your customers, your real customers. I think you've got trust symbols, you know, like the brands that you're associated with. And sometimes if you've got a new e-commerce business and you don't have any customer reviews yet, then that's all you've got to rely on. So that's one thing. But I think this is a time where it doesn't need to be fancy. I think the more, especially if you've got like an image, if a customer has provided you with an image, you know, unboxing, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, not well lit or anything else, because that does add credibility in that instance. So I think the best kind of social proof is actually reviews from your customers.
Yeah, and I would actually, if you run an e-commerce store and you don't have a specific program to harvest reviews, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. I think it's critical to do that and not rely on the ones on Amazon. Don't be sending them over to Amazon to read the reviews there. You should be in your box saying, hey, if you give me a review, I'll give you a gift card or next purchase or whatever it is. You don't need a lot of them. You need 10, 20, 30, 40 if you sell generally the same kinds of things. And if you pay $50 for 20 reviews and those are featured on your homepage forever, that's a cheap price to pay for that credibility. And then you can stop offering that special incentive to the people who write reviews, but have a specific follow-up process for getting reviews.
Yeah, I think it's a one body of content that the sooner you start building it and amassing it, the more effective it is, the more useful it is.
And don't farm somebody else's land, because I had reviews for our products that we used to have under our company website on LinkedIn, and then they got rid of the product pages. 78 reviews, zap, gone like that. So don't farm other people's land. Get those reviews yourselves in email and then put them up on your site.
Okay, still got a bunch of questions coming through. Reviews.
Oh, and somebody mentioned they have reviews on other sites. I don't know what Yotpo is, but yeah, go copy some of them. I mean, even though it's against their terms of service, and have them available in case you need them on your site, because they may go away or your account's going to close. So always have the good ones in your hip pocket.
Okay, I think, where are we up to? 11:22. I think we've got if you've got a question, now's your opportunity. Otherwise, we may begin to wrap things up.
Yeah, well, there's the social proof question. There's 4 ways to build trust on a website. Let me broaden it out a little bit. One is the site appearance, and we saw a couple of cheesy sites during our reviews, so it has to look professional, but not over the top. You know, it doesn't need to be slick, just professional and contemporary. The second is outside authority. So this would be media mentions, other people saying you're great instead of you saying you're great. The third are transactional trust symbols, everything from safe shopping seals to which payment methods you accept, to kind of trustworthiness of your company, that sort of thing. And the fourth, as you mentioned, are testimonials. And if you have very specific product categories, you need testimonials within them, not broadcast testimonials, but specific to those products or categories. 2 or 3 testimonials about backpacks on an outdoor adventure site is much more compelling than seeing the same thing on the homepage for tents, because backpacks and tents are not the same thing in my mind. So make sure you put them not just as, here's all of our testimonials, but down in the specific categories or even product level.
Yeah, I'd add to that. It's one thing I've seen Amazon do, which I think actually cheapens the whole review thing, is they combine reviews for different, for very similar products together, like maybe different sizes. I've always found that actually not useful. I think it's way more useful to say the product that you're looking at, this is the reviews for that specific product. It's not for the next model, it's not for the previous one, it's for that particular one there. There's a few people who have asked for additional reviews, so I mean, it's up to you, Tim, but my take is that this probably won't be the last time that I run this, and there'll be a survey afterwards asking people what they thought about this, and I think I'll try to get Tim back again. It wasn't easy, so if we do, then I'll let everyone know who participated, and then I'd say jump in. Don't miss your opportunity to have your site reviewed the next time that we run it.
And this was
Or
just a
Tim for
quick few
questions.
minutes on each, but I'd say, you know, if you really wanted focused on you, complete a detailed background questionnaire, we'll spend an hour and a half interactively and then a half-hour follow-up after you make a round of changes, completely guaranteed. Then take advantage of the discounts that Rod and Nathan have set up for you. Just email tim@timash.com. My baby is ugly. Help.
Well, open heart surgery. That's what you told me, Tim. At a conference once. Your website needs open heart surgery. That was so funny. I was very upset.
Or a
That was very
bulldozer
funny.
to start over,
Yeah.
right? I think was the other thing I said to you. I'm sorry, Rod. That was when I was less diplomatic than I am
That's
these
exactly
days.
what I needed, though. Yeah.
I think you said similar things when you did that process for our site years ago, Tim, but yeah, it made some big difference to us. So that's good.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate that.
And it just changes your thinking. It's like there's what everyone else is doing. That's what I find. Like everyone else is doing, sliders. Oh yeah, we've got to do a slider. Or the agency said we should do this.
Yeah, so it's either Flash and Sizzle, or it's because my e-commerce templates came out that way and it's hard to do anything else, which are both bad reasons. So if there's one thing that you should take away from this whole thing is focus on your website visitors. I mean, they're the long-suffering people that are trying to give you money. So try to help them, okay? And it's all about them. And look at your site with new eyes and recognize all the friction points and ugliness from your website visitors' point of view. Bring a beginner's mind to it and don't assume they're experts like you either.
Thank you, Donna Murrow, for your feedback. Yes, I'm glad you found the information useful. That was the entire intention, is to make sure we deliver a lot of value, because it's now that we can't get away to conferences, we have to get this information somehow. This is one of those things that I always found really useful, apart from the social side of things, but it was also, you know, seeing websites get reviewed and be able to learn from that.
Yeah, and I miss you guys. I want to come back in person one of these days. So probably, I think it's going to be my 7th trip down there.
Well, they might let you out.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah. And again, we'll send just those contact slides and the details to everyone
Yeah.
afterwards, right? Rod, you have a copy of the deck.
I'll put up a page for the recording, so you can replay it, and I'll email that out to all the registrants.
Fantastic.
So that you can do that. Any more questions? So we've got a few. I think we've answered pretty much most of these here. Oh, the search bar and the navigation. So the question is, you had mentioned you had some thoughts on the search bar in the navigation. Can you elaborate? Oh, Matt Beaton has left, but maybe I can't remember who said that. Was that you, Nathan?
Oh yeah, for anyone with a big catalog, we found that search was pretty important. So although you don't want to have a tall site header to take up a lot of space, your search bar, if it's clear and prominent in there, I would love to see search bars that are bigger than logos on websites for sure. So yeah, it makes a big difference for a larger catalog, absolutely.
Yep, and it doesn't have to live just in the header. It's perfectly fine to say this isn't a way we want you to navigate. About a third of people on complex sites will use site search, so just put it in the body of the page too. Belt and suspenders. That's the phrase I often use.
Okay. I think that might be it. I think we've exhausted the audience.
Cool. Thanks for your time, Tim. It was really good to join up and go through some of those reviews. It was really interesting, and I learned a fair bit too.
Hey, fantastic.
Yeah, this is really, it's great. I get to take this stuff away to my clients as well, which is really good, because it doesn't matter. Anytime you're driving traffic to your website, no matter where it's from, if you improve on-page optimization, you're going to get better results.
Yeah, and then for those of you that are, again, these are both, I think, available on Booktopia. So there's the landing page optimization book, 2nd edition, the blue one, not the orange one. And then this is the new book, also the Australian edition from Booktopia Editions, Unleash Your Primal Brain, very easy, digestible way to understand what all 8 billion of us on the planet have in common and how we got there.
Is that on Kindle, that one?
Oh
Tim?
yeah, it's on Kindle. I narrated the audio version myself as
Okay.
well. And like I say, the Booktopia edition paperback is available as of September 1st.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So just a note, as you leave the webinar, there'll be just a really quick survey, 2 quick questions. I'm keen to do something else like this again, whether it's and maybe we'll have Tim back again. But I'm interested in what people would actually like to have covered on these types of webinars, and also if there's anyone in particular that you'd like me to try and get in. So yeah, please do that. I'm interested in doing something more like this and actually putting some value back into the e-commerce community, which will help all of us. There was a last minute question from Kat there. Shouldn't the logo be visible? Your branding needs to show your customers have clicked to the right website.
Yep, and the
So
logo
there,
should
Kat,
be in the upper left.
yeah, I think that's what she's referring to.
Yep. That should always be there as an orientation. I suggest a nice, strong tagline phrase that without bullshit describes what your website's about as well, so they know they've landed in the right place.
Yeah. That's the 3-second rule. As soon as somebody lands on your web page, they need to be able to know who it is and what it is that you're actually about.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting experience with Matt, I forget Matt's last name, Matt Bullock, the founder of eWay. So he sold his company for, $50 million or something. And his new business is they do sales gamification software. And when I was having a look at his website, they'd gone to a lot of trouble to sort of explain what their business was about and put calls to action, etc. And I said, just remove all of that. Just have one line that very quickly describes what you do. And he still has that there. Like, he changed it 2 months ago. So it's easy to get into providing a lot of information with the main what your business is about underneath your logo, but you've got to keep it really simple, really short, really, really sharp. Top left. Yes, top left, Kat. Definitely have your logo top left. That's where everyone expects to see it, and they expect to be able to go back to home if they click on your logo. Really important.
Yeah, I know there's this whole thing about there's a lot more sites that are putting them in the center of the header now, but then it gets lost and it's cluttered. You should always be in the left and allow it room to breathe and visual space to separate it from everything else.
And doesn't that match with, like, don't we always start in the top left, Tim, and then work our way down?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if in countries where you read from left to right, it's upper left to lower right. That's the main diagonal of the page, and anything off axis in the upper right or lower left is not going to get as much attention, which is why you put all the supporting stuff like shopping cart, all the mechanical stuff up in the upper right.
Hopefully that answers that for you, Kat. And if the person who told you that it shouldn't be like that, well, I challenge them to have an argument with Tim about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, they come over here to the U.S. and beat me up, and since you can't fly here right now, I'm safe.
All right, last questions.
I've got to get going, guys. So yeah, thanks very much for inviting me along. And great to see so many attendees asking good questions, and I hope everyone got some value out of it.
All right, appreciate it, mate.
Thank you, Nathan. Great to see you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, guys.
Catch you soon. Okay. All right. Anything else to add, Tim? I think we'll wrap it up at this point. Looks like the questions are
No, just remember, it's about your visitor, not about you. So it's not about looking pretty or a lot of detail. It's about clarity, and clarity in this attention deficit world is hard to come by. So make it easy for people.
All right, great. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up now, guys. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your interest. As I said, I will email out the replay video to everybody, so you can check that out if you missed it. Feel free to share it with people in your team who might not have seen it. And I'll
the deck, the slides, the few introductory slides that'll be posted there.
Yeah, we'll do that too, so you can download that. And I'll be in touch once that's done. It might take a couple of days just to get that ready.
Thanks, everyone. Good day.
All right. See you later.